Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Munman Bhattacharya, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Preliminary investigation into the June 12 Air India crash released. Reports reveal both the engines shut down after fuel supply to them were cut off within seconds of takeoff. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses employment fair held at 47 locations across India. Employment letters distributed to over 51,000 youth. And Wimbledon enters a final stage in women's singles. Iga Swiatek of Poland faces Amanda Anisimova of the US today, while in men's singles, Sinner sets up final versus Alcaraz to be played on Sunday. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau has released a preliminary report on the June 12 crash of an Air India Boeing 7878 aircraft in Ahmedabad, revealing both the engines had shut down within seconds of takeoff. According to the report, the aircraft achieved the maximum recorded airspeed of 180 knots IAS at about 8:42 UTC, and immediately thereafter, the Engine 1 and Engine 2 fuel cutoff switches transitioned from run to cutoff position, one after another, with a time gap of only 1 second. The engine N1 and N2 began to decrease from their takeoff values as the fuel supply to the engines was cut off. The report acknowledges that CCTV footage obtained from the airport showed ram air turbine getting deployed during the initial climb immediately after liftoff. No significant bird activity is observed in the vicinity of the flight path. The aircraft started to lose altitude before crossing the airport perimeter wall. Meanwhile, Air India acknowledged receipt of the 15-page preliminary report and said it continues to fully cooperate with AAIB and other authorities. In a post on X, Air India stated, Air India stands in solidarity with the families and those affected by the AI-171 accident. We continue to mourn the loss and are fully committed to providing support during this difficult time. We acknowledge receipt of the preliminary report released by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau today, that is the 12th of July 2025. Air India is working closely with stakeholders, including regulators. We continue to fully cooperate with the AAIB and other authorities as their investigation progresses. Given the active nature of the investigation, we are unable to comment on specific details and refer all such inquiries to the AAIB. And joining us for more inputs on this is our correspondent Jessica Taneja, joining us live from the newsroom. Jessica, good afternoon. An interesting cockpit voice recording we know has now come to the fore in the preliminary report, with one pilot asking another, "Why did you cut off?" referring to the engine's fuel switches, and the other responding that he did not do so. And now it turns out that both fuel control switches were turned off. So what should one make of this as far as the possible cause of the crash is concerned?
Well, Munman, to tell our viewers, this is a preliminary report. It's just been more than barely a month since this incident took place. This horrific crash was seen by the world in the city of Ahmedabad. And perhaps what this preliminary report does seem to tell us is that in its all detailed version of what could have gone wrong, from the recordings that have been now made available, from flight data recorder to black box, we have almost all information available, but then a detailed report will be out in 1 year. Now, when you talk about the conversation between the pilot and the co-pilot, that exchange where he asks the pilot whether those fuel control switches were in run position or cut-off position, and when he was questioned, he says, no, they were not on cut-off position. He did not do that. Now, an understanding of this very complicated mechanism of fuel control switch is important, because that is where now the investigation would continue to move forward on. Now, when you talk about these fuel control switches, it is essential to note that when an aircraft is about to take off, and especially when it's placed inside the cockpit, this important switch is placed inside the cockpit. And if it's a dual engine, as was the case with the Dreamliner 787, if one engine fails, the control switches allow the pilot to switch off the engine that has been affected and switch on the other that has been placed as part of balancing air power, and also ensuring that the aircraft continues to go about its direction and its momentum. But within this 2 seconds or 3 seconds of conversation, it hasn't been made clear as to what was the problem initially, because from the reports that are coming out from this, particularly from this preliminary report, is the fact that the fuel control switch was found in the run position, which means that it was switched on when the aircraft had crashed. And also it should be in the run position where the aircraft is taking off. It is when it sort of was on the path of deceleration after failing to acquire that flight path to continue and prevent that crash is what has led to this. Now, this important box, which is the fuel control switch, is very essential, and it has a lock-stop mechanism, which means that it cannot automatically be switched on or switched off. Well, that is what the experts seem to believe. But if you go by a report in 2018, if I may point out and read out for our viewers, there were suggestions as well back that this was perhaps under scrutiny. This entire fuel control switch box mechanism was also under scrutiny. There were reports, but nothing so glaring that got the attention of either the aircraft maker, which is Boeing, neither the Air India authorities, which also have said that they did try to work on the recommendations made both in 2023 as well as in 2019. So there is a lot that has come out in terms of what could have led to this crash, but the key to understanding what is exactly the cause would be to get more detail on what exactly went wrong with that fuel control switch, because that is where all the details later, the mechanisms of it and the functioning of it, whether there was a problem with its engineering or its repair or maintenance, is what we'll have to wait and see it.
Yes, Jessica, since we know the sequence of how things really played out from the limited information we have from the cockpit recording, which is now detailed in the preliminary report, if you could put before us the unanswered questions now in terms of the switches being in the run position, turned off or turned on position, and if really one of the pilots or both the pilots did turn on the switches, whether both the switches were turned on, whether one switch was turned on, and if they were indeed turned on, then why did they not gain altitude?
Well, that is where the mystery lies, Munmun, because it is essential for the pilot, and in fact, when it's this important control switch box is in the cockpit, and the pilots ensure that it's in the run position, which means that it will be able, the engines will be able to receive the fuel to power and gradually accelerate and take off. So the pilots ensure that they're in the run position, which means the switch would have been in accordance with what the flight norms are on the basic mechanisms when the aircraft is boarding and about to take off. Now, what happened immediately, I think 30 seconds after takeoff, and it had gained a certain altitude. Initially, there were reports suggesting that, there could be a problem with the wings. Why weren't they up? And also the landing gear. Well, those questions have been eliminated, and now we all seem to be thinking of or, sort of analyzing how that important fuel control switch would have functioned. Now, as soon as they took off, the flight, the flight data recorder, and also the voices of the two pilots. The conversation can be seen where the pilot is asking the co-pilot why did he switch off one of the fuel control, why was one of the fuel control switches cut off. Well, when they're gaining altitude, it should be on run, because that is how, if there is enough fuel in the engine, only then will it accelerate. But what happened was, as per the explanation from the preliminary report, that there was an instant switch. First, the first engine's switch went to cut off, and within a second, the other switch also went on cut off, which means that both the engines went on cut off mode within 1 second, and then 12 seconds later, both switched on as well, which means that they were again up on the run position, which means the aircraft was receiving fuel and the engines were receiving fuel for that acceleration. But due to the delay in the switching, the aircraft couldn't accelerate, and rather led to deceleration, which then led to its crash. So the mystery is whether this points towards what the conversation between the pilots was there a confusion, or was there a problem in that switch, fuel switch control, which has been a question. And let's not forget Boeing, with all its past criticism of how it has handled aircraft maintenance to a certain parts that have led to horrific crashes in the past, of course, is also under scrutiny. So there'll be a lot of questions asked from Boeing about this particular fuel control switch, because it is the most essential part of the aircraft. Although there are RAT systems as well, which ensure that the aircraft has an additional has a turbine in case both the engines fail. But in this case, both the RAT as well as I have been able to read was switched on. So it's highly mysterious, and certainly tends to leave more questions than answers at this point. And as we both know, this report and it's all the details will be available only about a year. That's how long an investigation takes when it comes to such horrific crashes. So, but interesting to point out that the preliminary report in itself is very detailed, which usually isn't the case. So I'm sure there will be more answers in the coming future as to how this particular fuel switch control mechanism is at the center of this entire crash, and what could have possibly gone wrong. We'll have to wait and see.
Right, so several unanswered questions there, but all eyes on the fuel control switch and what really happened there, whether there was a mechanical failure, an electric failure, or some other failure. We'll leave it at that. Jessica Taneja joining us from the newsroom on top of this story. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday virtually attended the ceremony of distribution of appointment letters to 51,000 people at the 16th Rozgar Mela, or employment fair, held at 47 locations across India. The newly appointed youth will be recruited across central government ministries and departments. PM Modi congratulated the young individuals on beginning their service in various departments, emphasizing that despite different roles, their common goal is national service, guided by the principle of citizen first. While addressing the event, PM highlighted that India is being ranked among the top countries with the highest equality in the world.
आज वर्ल्ड बैंक जैसी बड़ी वैश्विक संस्थाएं खुल करके इस काम के लिए भारत की प्रशंसा कर रही है, दुनिया को, भारत को मॉडल के रूप में प्रस्तुत करती है। भारत को दुनिया के सबसे अधिक इक्वलिटी वाले शीर्ष के देशों में रखा जा रहा है। यानी असमानता तेजी से कम हो रही है, हम समानता की ओर आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, ये भी विश्व अब नोटिस कर रहा है।
India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar attended the 4th convocation ceremony of the Indian Institute of Information Technology in Kota on Saturday. He was felicitated by the Governor of Rajasthan, Haribhau Bhagre, the state ministers, along with other dignitaries. Addressing the event, Vice President Dhankar said that education is the most impactful and transformative mechanism to bring about equality and to strengthen democratic values. Vice President Dhankar also planted saplings at IIIT quota.
Education is the most impactful, transformative mechanism to bring about equality, to cut into inequities, and to give cutting edge to democratic values. Triple IT quota is helping forge the foundation of digital India, now a global need. It is not merely imparting technical knowledge, it is much beyond. It is shaping the contours of a new confident and technologically sovereign India.
India's Home Minister Amit Shah inaugurated the newly built BJP Kerala unit's headquarters in Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala on Saturday. At the inauguration, Amit Shah planted a sapling in front of the office building and also unveiled the sculpture of BJP's former state president, late KG Marar. The state-of-the-art office is the 7-story and 60,000 square foot building. Addressing a gathering at Viksit Keralam Sammelan, the Home Minister said that without the development of the southern states, a developed India is simply not possible.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी के लिए कार्यालय ये हमारे लिए मंदिर की स्थान जितना पवित्र स्थान है। श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने विकसित भारत की संकल्पना देश के 140 करोड़ लोगों के सामने रखी है। विकसित भारत का रास्ता विकसित केरलम से होकर ही जाता है। दक्षिण के शक्तिशाली राज्यों के विकास के बगैर विकसित भारत संभव ही नहीं।
Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. More than 1,300 State Department employees fired in a downsizing ordered by President Donald Trump. India to resume batting at 145 for 3 on day 3 of the Lord's Test. India trail England by 242 runs.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. More than 1,300 State Department employees were fired since Friday in a downsizing ordered by President Donald Trump as the administration of President Donald Trump presses ahead with an unprecedented overhaul of its U.S. diplomatic corps, a move critics say will undermine U.S. interest abroad. The layoffs cover 1,107 civil service and 246 foreign service officers based in the United States. The layoffs at the department came 3 days after the Supreme Court cleared the way for the Trump administration to begin carrying out its plan to gut entire government departments. The conservative-dominated top court lifted a temporary block imposed by a lower court on Trump's plans to lay off potentially tens of thousands of employees. The United States on Friday announced for the first time sanctions against Cuban President Canel for his role in the regime's brutality towards the Cuban people. The U.S. State Department was restricting visas for the president and other high-ranking government officials. Other officials sanctioned included Defense Minister Alvaro Lopez Miera and Interior Minister Lazaro Alberto Alvarez Casas. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio accused the Cuban government of suppressing dissent and mismanaging national resources, pointing to the regime's harsh response to the July 2021 mass protests, the largest public demonstrations since the 1959 revolution. The protests, which resulted in hundreds of arrests, dozens of injuries and 1 death, drawing global condemnation. The The United States is once again delivering military supplies to Ukraine and will also be sending its special envoy Keith Kellogg to Kiev next week, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said. Speaking in the nightly video address, Zelensky also set out a long list of areas in Ukraine where the military is facing challenges in resisting the slow advance of Russian forces in the 40-month-old conflict. He restated that Ukraine had received high-level signals from Washington and its Western allies that arms supplies paused for a time last week had now resumed. Earlier, US President Donald Trump said that the United States would supply weapons to Ukraine via NATO. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met North Korean Foreign Minister Cho Son-hui on Saturday in Wonsan, continuing a series of high-level Moscow visits to Pyongyang. During the talks, Lavrov thanked North Korea's leadership for what he called a very important contribution to the just cause of liberating Russian territories.
We are sincerely grateful to the leadership of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, all military personnel, soldiers and officers who demonstrated excellent combat training and made a very important contribution to the just cause of liberating Russian territories.
A new women's champion will be crowned at Wimbledon 2025 as five-time Grand Slam winner Iga Swiatek faces off against Amanda Anisimova in a blockbuster final. As both players gear up for the final, the centre court is ready to witness blockbuster showdown. Here's a report.
Long known for her dominance on clay, Swiatek has reshaped her game this season, working specifically on her movement and serve to finally find comfort on grass. After reaching her first grass final in Bad Homburg and now her second here at Wimbledon, the signs are clear. She's more than just a clay court queen. When Iga Swiatek walks out for Saturday's final, she'll be chasing her sixth Grand Slam title, but her very first at Wimbledon. Swiatek has dropped just one set all tournament, that too in round 2. A win on Saturday would make her the fastest woman to 100 Grand Slam match wins since Serena Williams in 2004. But standing in her way is one of the most compelling stories of the season, Amanda Anisimova. A year ago, Anisimova didn't even qualify for Wimbledon. Ranked outside the top 180 and returning from a break from tennis, few saw her resurgence coming. But since then, she has won a WTA 1000 title in Doha, reached another final in Canada, and is now into her first ever Grand Slam final. The American powerhouse has shown resilience, and on Saturday, she'll break into the top 10 for the first time. She arrives at the final on the back of a stunning upset over world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka in the semis. For the 8th consecutive year, Wimbledon will crown a new women's champion. The final will crown a new queen of centre court, whether it's Iga Swiatek completing her Grand Slam set or Amanda Anisimova becoming the first American Wimbledon winner since 2016. Sports Desk, DD India.
While in the men's finals, Jannik Sinner will face Carlos Alcaraz on Sunday. World number 1 Jannik Sinner was a dominant straight set winner over 7-time champion Novak Djokovic. This is Sinner's 5th consecutive win against Djokovic, and he will bid for a 3rd title in a row now. While Carlos Alcaraz is into a 3rd successive men's singles final at Wimbledon and will bid for a 3rd straight title on Sunday. He defeated American Taylor Fritz in 4 sets in today's first semi-final. An update now on the 3rd test between India and England underway at Lord's. On day 2 on Friday, Jasprit Bumrah claimed a brilliant 5-wicket haul. Joe Root struck a sublime century, and KL Rahul anchored India's reply with an unbeaten 50. At stumps, India were 145 for 3, trailing England by 242 runs, with Rahul at crease with 53 and Rishabh Pant with 19. Captain Shubman Gill, looking to break Rahul Dravid's record for most runs by an Indian in a test series in England, fell short after edging Walkers to keeper Jamie Smith, who stood up to the stumps. With the series tied 1-1, the third test is finally balanced, heading into day 3. That's it then in this edition of DD India Live, but do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. This is Mumnun Bhattacharya from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.